really makes me second guess a lot of these cases that have been in the news the last couple of years that we really thought point blank period the man was guilty.
Picture this. You're a guy just trying to live your life when suddenly anonymous women online start rating you like a piece of meat, posting your photos without permission, and turning you into their entertainment. Sound insane? Well, it's happening right now on an app called TEA, and the men being targeted are finally fighting back. What started as women's supposed attempt at accountability has turned into something much darker. And today, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that has everyone talking. The T app launched with a simple premise that honestly sounds reasonable on the surface. Women could anonymously rate and review men they've dated, worked with, or encountered. Think Yelp, but for human beings. The creators pitched it as a safety tool, a way for women to warn each other about potentially dangerous or problematic men. Noble goal, right? But here's where things get complicated and frankly disturbing. Almost immediately, the app became something entirely different. Instead of focusing on genuine safety concerns like abuse or harassment, users started posting reviews about guys who didn't text back fast enough, who split the bill on dates, or who simply weren't interested in a second date. Men found themselves getting one-star reviews for having different political opinions.
I know who is fake, who is real. I just love watching their acting.
For being too short or for not being wealthy enough. This wasn't accountability anymore. It was public humiliation disguised as female empowerment. The real kicker, men had no way to defend themselves, respond to accusations, or even know they were being reviewed until someone told them. Imagine discovering that dozens of strangers have been discussing your appearance, your personality, and your dating habits online, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. The app's anonymity feature meant anyone could post anything about anyone with zero consequences. But here's where our story takes an interesting turn. Men started organizing, sharing screenshots, and calling out the hypocrisy they were seeing, and leading this charge was a content creator named Jed, whose response videos have been going absolutely viral. Jed didn't just complain about the app, he systematically exposed the double standards and toxic behavior he witnessed, and his takedown was surgical. In his most popular video, Jed highlighted how the same women demanding accountability for men's behavior were completely unwilling to be held accountable for their own actions on the platform. He showed examples of reviews that were clearly vindictive, petty, or outright false, while the reviewers hid behind anonymous profiles. The irony was thick. Women claiming to want honesty and accountability while refusing to put their names behind their own words. Jed's critique hit different because he didn't resort to name-calling or general attacks on women. Instead, he focused laser-sharp attention on the specific behavior he was seeing. He called out women who would rate a guy poorly for not paying for expensive dates, then turn around and lecture others about gender equality. He highlighted reviews where women criticized men for being too eager or not eager enough, sometimes about the same behaviors. The inconsistency was staggering. What really resonated with his audience was when Jed addressed the fundamental unfairness of the system. He pointed out that if men created an app to anonymously rate women's dating performance, relationship skills, or physical attributes, it would be rightfully called misogynistic and probably banned from app stores within days. Yet somehow, when women did the exact same thing to men...
So it's been a couple months of me really trying to figure out if there is anything.
It was celebrated as empowerment and safety. The response to Jed's videos was explosive. Thousands of men shared their own experiences of being unfairly reviewed or targeted on the platform. Stories emerged of guys losing job opportunities because potential employers found negative TEA reviews. Others talked about the psychological impact of discovering anonymous strangers had been trashing their character online. The human cost of this digital vigilantism was becoming impossible to ignore. But the women defending the app weren't backing down. They argued that men just couldn't handle being held accountable for their actions. They claimed that any criticism of TEA was just fragile masculinity and an attempt to silence women's voices. This response only proved Jed's point about the lack of self-accountability. When faced with legitimate criticism about their platform's misuse, they deflected rather than addressing the actual problems. The situation escalated when several women posted response videos to Jed, but instead of addressing his specific points, they resorted to personal attacks and assumptions about his character. They proved his argument in real time by demonstrating exactly the kind of behavior he was criticizing, making judgments about someone based on limited information while refusing to engage with the actual issues being raised. What makes this controversy particularly fascinating is how it reveals deeper tensions about gender, accountability, and power in our digital age. The T app represented a shift where women felt empowered to publicly judge men.
The most dangerous man is the one who stands alone.
In ways that historically went the other direction. But power without responsibility always becomes toxic, regardless of who wields it. When any group can anonymously attack individuals without consequences, abuse inevitably follows. Jed's broader message resonated because he wasn't arguing against accountability itself. He was pointing out that real accountability requires fairness, transparency, and the ability to respond to accusations. The TEA app provided none of these things. It was accountability theater, giving users the feeling of justice while actually just enabling cyberbullying with a social justice veneer. The legal implications are also worth considering. Several men have reportedly consulted lawyers about defamation cases related to false or malicious reviews on the platform. The anonymous nature of the app doesn't necessarily protect users from legal consequences if their identity can be determined. This has created additional pressure on the app's creators to implement better verification and moderation systems. As this story continues to unfold, it raises important questions about the future of digital accountability platforms.
Women are better. And I started this class because a couple months ago, I genuinely had the thought. I was like, are women better at anything?
How do we balance legitimate safety concerns with protection from false accusations? How do we create systems that empower marginalized groups without enabling abuse? These aren't easy questions, but they're conversations we need to have. Jed's confrontation with the no accountability crowd represents something larger than just one app controversy. It's about standing up to digital mob mentality, regardless of which group is wielding the pitchforks. Sometimes fighting back means calling out hypocrisy wherever you find it, even when it's wrapped in the language of social justice. What do you think about this whole situation? Are platforms like TIA necessary for safety, or do they create more problems than they solve? Let me know in the comments below.